That's
outside.
That's right.
So to recap though, the best way to
Yeah.
detox your liver is one of the best ways is that you would recommend would be intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting, definitely lots of cruciferous
Cruciferous.
vegetables. Yeah, blending is really good, as well as juicing like fruits and veggies.
Yeah.
When we're looking at someone and we really want to help their liver, it's almost like there's a 2-week period where they could almost be vegan. You know, they can get their protein completely plant-based from like things like hemp seed and almond, and they can go total cruciferous vegetables. They can do a lot of sprouts. When we look at sprouts, like broccoli sprouts, for example, have anywhere between 10 and 100 times the amount of nutritional density than the actual adult broccoli floret.
Broccoli sprouts.
Yeah, broccoli sprouts, huge. Yeah, tremendous amount of sulfur too. If you ever just eat them and chew them straight, you'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah, they look like alfalfa sprouts, right?
Yeah, yes.
What about eggs with sulfur? The eggs are very sulfur smelling. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, eggs. So here again, when we get to the liver, so the friends of the liver are like the plants. You know, that's really, it's the cruciferous vegetables. Berries are great. The enemy to the liver is any type of dense animal protein.
Okay.
Especially starting with the red meats being the worst for the liver. So if you're trying to detox your liver, red meats are definitely not going to get you there. Eggs are also hard on the liver. They're also hard on the gallbladder. So eggs are not good. If you wanted to go with an animal type of food and you're trying to help the liver, you can go with a quality sushi. It's got to be wild caught, or if you wanted to do like wild caught salmon, and there's a couple companies that are good, like Wild Alaska. They have a good salmon. The way they farm it, it's great for the environment. It's very environmentally conscious, but it's also farmed in areas where there's low likelihood of those fish being like toxic, filled with like junk.
Yeah.
So,
with that, do you feel like sushi is safe as far as parasites go and such, as long as it's wild caught and your body's able to detox properly?
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe if you go to the right restaurant, because so sushi, I forget what the degrees are, but it has to be frozen at a specific degree for a certain period of time. It's like negative 30 something Celsius or Fahrenheit or something.
So you don't want like fresh sushi, like at the super fancy restaurants when they're like, we just flew this in.
Or just caught it.
So
yeah.
So typically, if they just flew it in, it would have been frozen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they would catch it. They would freeze it. Like there's one way to do it where I think it only takes an hour or something like that. You have to freeze it at I wish I had the numbers for you guys. It's like negative something degrees Fahrenheit, and you have to freeze it for like an hour. And then after that hour, you can thaw it, and any of the parasites that are in there or eggs are going to be dead because it's too harsh of a temperature for them. And then they thaw it, and it's essentially fresh. Now, if you're ever with someone on a boat and you catch it, that's a little different.
Is that sketchy or what?
It's sketchy. Yeah, it's sketchy. But a lot of let's just take salmon, for example. Salmon doesn't have a whole lot of parasites in it.
So good when it's not previously frozen.
Amen, sister. So salmon doesn't have a whole lot of parasites in it that really affect the human body. There's one, I think it's a tapeworm, and it'll attach to our stomach and make you really sick, but it's only for like a couple of days, and then it can't live in our body and your body excretes it out. So there's not a whole lot of parasites in sushi.
What fish has the most parasites?
I don't know the answer to that one. That's a really good question, but I don't know the answer to that one.
You mean you're not a fish expert too?
Well,
name in order, Mercedes. I walk out of this interview with my head hung low.
Oh my God, no! You have so much, just a wealth of information. That's why I just keep asking you questions. I did want to ask about, because we were talking about the liver and it being able to process, the nutrients we need out of these foods, or it being important in order for it to function, the liver to function properly itself. When we're talking about iron, because that's something I struggle with, and a lot of women tend to struggle with, and men, I guess, struggle on the other end of it, right? Like too much iron.
Right.
What's going on there?
So a couple things. So let's take women first, because I think overall we see more iron problems in women than men, for sure. There's a few things that are happening when there's an iron deficiency state, or there's anemia that's occurring. We got to look first at the stomach, because the digestion of iron, you have to have enough stomach acid present. If there's not enough stomach acid present for the individual, they're going to have a hard time being able to absorb iron, so that's the first thing. The second thing, a lot of the iron is absorbed right in the lower intestinal tract, so in the small intestine. So if there's stuff like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, if there's stuff like that present, it's going to impair the ability of iron to be absorbed. And then there's medications. Like, so many people are on medications,
Yes.
It's just nuts. And there's a handful of them that will interfere with iron absorption. So I think it's really important when there's iron deficiency anemia to look at, what's going on. Is there enough in the diet? 2, is your stomach acidic enough to digest it? And 3, what's happening in the small intestines? Is your small intestines able to absorb this stuff that you're taking in?
Yeah,
sorry, good. What are the symptoms of iron deficiency?
So you're tired. You're really tired. You get brain fog. Your muscles get achy. You could have like achiness almost in your bones. Your capacity to remember is just kind of shot.
Because a lot of these symptoms are similar. All of the like adrenal and thyroid and.
That's why you got to test, right?
Yeah.
Because when someone comes in symptomatically to me, I'm like, oh, well, that's one of 47,000 different things you could have. So let's narrow it down.
Yeah. What about the on the men's side is the symptoms, since it's the opposite, what would their symptoms be?
So their symptoms, if they're actually iron deficient, and is going to be the same. If the guys have too much, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's known as like hemochromatosis. Those guys have a different, so some of them are actually asymptomatic. They could be asymptomatic for a while. Other ones will get cramps. They'll get like leg cramps. They'll get legs. Yeah, it's one of the symptoms that they can get. But for those guys, that can be a little tricky, because when there's too much iron, the iron will start to deposit in different organs, and it'll create these kind of odd symptoms. And it's not until they go to the doctor and the doc goes, well, let's do a blood panel, and they go, whoa, man, your iron levels are through the roof, right?
It's so funny too, because in our culture, well, first of all, women have periods, so we get to detox a lot of that extra iron out if we have too much, or someone who bleeds too much like me probably needs to like not do that so much. So that's a whole nother thing. But men, especially in our culture, are told we got to eat red meat. We got to be stuffing our face full of iron all the time. And
male. Yeah.
You don't have any way to detox that stuff regularly like we do. So it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm also curious. You brought up eggs a couple times. What if you're eating pasture raised eggs? I eat 2 pasture raised eggs every day, and my kids eat 1 every day. If they're pasture raised and organic, is that okay? Or
awesome. Yeah. We're talking specifically for the liver question. That was like specific for someone that really wants to detox their liver.
Right.
So if you're going to do a 2-week liver detox or something like that, the eggs you don't want to do.
So, but us having those every day is not going to negatively affect our liver.
Organic pasture raised eggs, I have them periodically as well.
Okay.
So,
and just the difference between, before we move off the iron topic, the difference between heme and non-heme iron, and how we can use those to regulate our iron intake if we're a man or a woman, and how that might be better for one or the other scenario. If that's not like in your realm or your specialty, we can totally move on.
It's something I don't do a whole lot with. So I'm trying to think. So I have an answer for you, but I'm trying to think if I want to give the answer. I like whatever I'm giving you. I want to make sure it's completely correct. And I don't know that I feel 100% comfortable giving you the answer that I have in my head for that.
It's all good. And I just say, and I don't know if we'll even keep this in the show, so don't worry about, we have editing power, but
so we're not live.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all good. We have editing power. It makes it really, really a lot easier for everybody involved.
And on that note, I'm going to run to the restroom super fast, but you guys keep going.
Can I go take a pee?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Bathroom break.
Okay. Misha's yelling at my door again because I went out there and now she's reset. She's naughty. So you just pick up, Jade, on your question. We'll just cut that last piece.
Okay. So you say that pH is one of the most misunderstood topics in natural healthcare, and I myself have a really hard time understanding it. Can you explain the scale?
Sure, yeah. So the pH scale is a scale, it's an arbitrary scale from basically 1 to 14, right? And 1 to 7 or 1 to 6.9 is acidic. And then 7 is totally neutral, which would just be pure water. And then 7.1 to 14, that's going to be what's called alkaline or basic. So that's how that scale is kind of broken down. And I think one of the problems that occurs in healthcare today is when we discuss pH, we have this, everyone says alkalize, they're like, gotta alkalize your body, alkalize your body. And I'm not exactly sure where that comes from. I have an idea where it comes from. And that is the pH of your blood is between 7.3 and 7.4, and which is slightly alkaline. So I think maybe that came from there. You're thinking eat foods that are more alkaline. And
like alkaline water is super trendy right now too.
Yeah, I'm not a big advocate of alkaline water because you push your body into a condition called alkalosis. Your body has to maintain this, your bloodstream has to maintain this pH of 7.3 to 7.4. If it goes to alkaline, your body is going to do certain things. It's going to disrupt certain normal biochemical reactions that need to take place, and it's going to disrupt those things to take the other stuff it needs, the minerals and things it needs, or the acid, the chloride ions that it needs, or hydrogen ions, to bring your blood more into an acidic state if it goes to alkaline. So drinking loads of alkaline water, unless you're a cancer patient, is not necessarily an ideal thing, because it's going to push your body into too far of an alkaline state. And the same thing with acids. So that's my thought on that. When we look at the gut, when we look at digestion, like we talked about, the first parts in your mouth, slightly acidic. In your stomach, acid. You had to take Mercedes
right.
betaine hydrochloride.
Yeah.
Add the hydrochloric acid back into your gut, right? So that's acidic. So we need to have certain acids in our digestive tract. And actually, there was clinical research that showed the more alkaline the pH of the colon stool, the higher the chance was and the occurrence of colorectal cancer.
Fascinating.
So, so it's really, we need to acidify the gut. We need to make sure, and I don't mean go eat a hunk of meat. That's not what I mean. We need to make sure there's enough acid there for our digestion. Apple cider vinegar, betaine hydrochloride, those type of foods are going to aid in the digestive processes, but also acidifying our gut. And really just normal digestion without pouring a whole bunch of alkaline water into your system. Because that's just going to, like I said, it's going to create a condition of alkalosis in your body. It's not going to be good for you.
Yeah. So the ACV is good to have every day.
For most people, as long as you don't have gastritis or stomach ulcers, then yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's such it is a really trendy topic right now, being alkaline or eating alkaline, and especially with, of course, cancer patients attempting to create more alkalinity in their body. And the way that I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to specifically like alkaline water, if you're putting alkaline water in your stomach where you want it to be acid, because that's where all the initial digestion happens, then you're diluting the acidity. And if you're having that too close to the food that you're trying to digest, it doesn't allow the digestion that needs to happen inside the stomach to happen. So then your food carries on into the rest of your digestive system without being digested properly up to that point. Is
Correct.
that okay?
That's 100% correct. But the other point of that is when you drink water, that water and a lot of its stuff that make it alkaline or acidic are absorbed immediately into your bloodstream, right? Within 20 minutes. So you put that water in your gut, that water enters your bloodstream. And if that water has a pH of 10, your bloodstream goes, whoa, what the heck, man? All right, we got to now steal the stuff we would use to make hydrochloric acid. We got to steal that stuff and bring it into the blood so we can make the blood less alkaline, or else you'll go into a condition of alkalosis and die. So the body has to.
What is the best water to drink?
My personal opinion, this is what I do at home, so my wife and kids do. I like a reverse osmosis water, so a reverse osmosis system, so it completely pulls everything out of the water, so it's a neutral pH 7.0, but then it goes through a remineralizer, which is basically, like tube filled with all different minerals in it, and it passes through the minerals, and the pH of the water comes out about 7.4, so right around the pH of your blood. And that I think is the best, because you got mineral rich water, it tastes delicious, and there's no junk in it, and it's cost effective for people buying plastic water bottles all the time.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, personally, I love Mountain Valley Spring, I believe it's called. It's the green glass bottles normally, but they also deliver, instead of like getting the sparklets or whatever, they deliver big 4-gallon bottons.
Oh.
Yeah, the problem is
in glass?
No, you can get them in glass. It's very expensive to do it that way, but you can get 4-gallon glass bottles, or you can get 4-gallon green plastic bottles, which does change the alkalinity and all that too. But I think that because it's mineralized, and by the way, I can tell very much the difference, just the way that the thing that I use to dispense it collects the minerals.
So at Whole Foods is where I refill my water. They have the pH balance, which is like 9 something, 9.4, 9.7, and it's twice the price. Then they have the DNIs in the reverse osmosis, and I get 13 gallons a week, and I just split it between the DNIs and the reverse osmosis, but I do get the plastic. It's BPA free, but I know with the phthalates, is it how you say it? Phthalates. Yeah. I know that I'm still probably absorbing that from storing my water in there. I'm a single mom with 2 toddlers, and carrying a 5-gallon thing of glass is very hard for me. I break the plastic ones enough. But I did see you mention that we have plastic showing up in our poop. So, and how that's affecting our liver. Can you talk to us about that?
First off, I think, to backstep for a second, we have to also live a practical lifestyle. And it's not about, for me, life is not about perfection. It's a being and attaining the best that I could be for everyone that I'm connected to. And I think like some people, sometimes they get too hard on themselves. They're like, well, I do this right and this right and this right and this right and this right, but man, I drink out of the plastic water. Okay. You're doing these other.
As long as it's not one-time use plastic.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't do that.
Well,
for the planet.
That's not just bad for you. That's bad for the planet.
Right. That's good for the environment. Amen.
Yeah.
So when we look at that, right, if someone just for themselves is doing, 89 things right and is doing 10 or 11 things wrong, there's a balance there where the body, the body can handle that, right? So we're talking about individual topics here. So as far as the poop in the plastic or the plastic in the poop, so there's some research now that's being done. There's one that came out of Vienna Medical School, and it was a small study, but it showed 100% of the people, they had plastic in their poop. So actually,
wow, 100%.
100%. There was another study that was done, which was a bit bigger, and that one had about roughly 50% of the participants had plastic in their poop.
And that's probably not just from drinking out of plastic, but from eating fish that's eating plastic.
Eating fish that's eating plastic, microwaving in plastic. We're in a fast food, fast environment. People go home, they throw a dinner in the microwave, they spit it up.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Up, right? They eat it. Plastic utensils, all that type of stuff. Styrofoam has styrenes in it and some plastic
I can't believe we're still making styrofoam.
Isn't it just silly, right? It's like, come on, people, catch up.
Yeah.
It's destructive to our environment and to our people. Yeah. So that there's this conglomeration of plastic, and we know that plastic in and of itself has the potential to be linked to all kinds of inflammatory conditions, type 2 diabetes. Phthalates particularly are linked to type 2 diabetes. We know that plastics are endocrine. Some of the stuff in there are endocrine disruptors. Even if it's BPA free, there's other chemicals and substances that can be connected to that. So I think it's one, it's great for the environment. Two, it's great for the individual. And three, it's great for the individual's family and friends if we work towards reducing the amount of plastics that we use. Look, if I'm real thirsty and I don't have anything but a plastic water bottle around, I'm going to drink it because I'm thirsty. I need something, right? But I think when when that's it, when we're relying on plastic for everybody, look, if 100% of these people had plastic in their poop, plastic surgery is going to mean something totally different.
Yeah.
It's a little too much.
And you think about too how much you spend on the 24 pack from Costco or Sam's Club, whatever, on plastic water bottles. Think about how much you're spending on that versus these reusable ones. This was a gallon reusable water bottle that's plastic free, was $13.
Right.
So you also think about the money that you're saving as well when you're giving up the single use.
Yep. Huge savings. I think eventually if we keep going down this pattern or down this path, I think about, you have kids. So Jade, do you ever see Santa Claus 3?
I don't think I saw 1, 2, or 3.
Oh, you didn't see that?
Is it Tim Allen?
With Tim Allen. Never mind.
He bothers me.
Does he bother you?
Yeah, that was of our time. I just have never watched him. I don't know why.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Never mind. Moving on.
Yeah, I have no idea. We have no way to relate.
Well, it's Santa Claus 3. I'll do this for your
our audience. They'll know.
Santa Claus 3, what happens is Tim Allen has to leave the North Pole to handle some business. And they don't want everyone to freak out. So the elves, or this one Kiev manufactures this like plastic Santa Claus, but he's alive, but he's like a toy, so he looks like a toy. So I was just alluding to the fact that eventually we will end up like the Santa Claus 3, but you guys have no idea who that is. So
I still haven't seen Matrix, so just.
Can you even? She hasn't seen Matrix. Soak that in again.
I'm working on it. I now there's so much pressure that I need it to be cinematic around me while I watch it. And so
like surround 3D. Yeah, you have to have, it needs to come out
on
with
a projector.
Yeah. That's a huge thing. It blows my mind. My daughter she's 19, my son's 17. A year ago, she had a bunch of people over at the house, and they were like, I play guitar, and they were asking me my daughter sings and plays guitar. She's really, really good singer. And they asked me like, Mr. Rob, will you play some stuff? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm like, what do you guys want to hear? They're like, I don't know. What do you like to play? I'm like, I can play some Guns N' Roses for you. And they're like, who?
Oh no.
I'm like, Sweet Child of Mine? And they're like, no. I'm like,
wow.
I feel weird.
That is a shame.
It was weird.
All right. So I don't know if I'm kicking a dead horse here, which I hate that saying, so I don't know why I just used it, but, and we're skipping around a lot, but I think anyone listening can appreciate that it gives them time to digest a little piece. And then when we come back around, maybe they'll have a little insight into it now. So as we were talking about alkalinity versus acidity, the pH scale, and how our bodies try to run at, I guess I'm going to say it this way, you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to get a simple-minded understanding of this because it's a really complex idea, I think, for a lot of people, especially because of how it's being sold in so many directions out there in the market. Our body, and maybe is it specifically our blood, wants to run at a 7.3-ish. Okay, and so when we're consuming the all alkaline diet, that might be a lot of these anti-inflammatory foods we're talking about. You know, for anyone listening, meat and dairy, it's a very acidic food. So that's kind of the opposite of people who are doing an all alkaline diet. And so when we're doing that, I think the idea is that as I consume these foods or this water that's high alkaline, I'm creating I'm going to be at an 11 on the pH scale, you know, something like that. But just to simplify that concept, if I'm getting this right, it's a matter of we want to maintain our body has to maintain a 7.2 to 7.4-ish in order to be okay, in order to be copacetic. And it's always buffering in order to do that. So no matter what you put in it, whether you're putting in something at an 11 pH or something at a 4, your body has to figure out how to regulate it so that it stays at the 7.3. Okay. And so with that, whenever we are over consuming in one direction or the other, it's putting the pressure on all of our buffering systems and stressing us actually more than helping us at some degree. Am I getting that right? Okay. So
that's spot on. And I think, Mercedes, I think the biggest culprit in that is actually not so much the diet, like alkaline diet, like the alkaline foods, those are all great healing foods. Do an alkaline diet.
Absolutely.
It's the alkaline water specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the item. You know, that's like the criminal here in the lineup. That's the bad guy.
And so if we're talking about, okay, we know now that there's some really great foods we can go to keep us from having to buffer so hard or from stressing our buffering systems. Because if we ate an all acidic diet or an all meat diet for that matter, our buffering systems may have to turn on to such a degree that our bodies are hyper focused on trying to do that buffering and get us to that regulated pH where it needs to be, that it is distracted essentially from fighting off the cancer cells or fighting off the other disease in our body. And that's where it can become harmful to have a very acidic diet or to live a very acidic lifestyle. Yeah. Is that right? Okay. Yeah. And so that's where the cancer piece plays in and why alkaline diet is so heavily sold in the cancer directed marketing. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would agree with that statement 100%. Like that. And there's nothing wrong with an alkaline diet, right?
Yeah.
It's the idea. People take a concept of, and this is just my thought, because I still don't know where this came from, but my thought is, okay, we got this pH of 7.3 to 7.4. We know when we eat alkaline type of foods like asparagus and celery and things like that, they're really good for our body. So we then should alkalize. So let's make an alkaline water, right? That sounds great. We could probably sell that and people will buy it. But I really don't think for the majority of people, I think that's one thing they should not do is alkaline water.
Cool. All right.
I know I get bloated, right? Like when I drink alkaline water, it actually bloats me. So that's, I think, my body telling me not to do it.
Probably a good indicator. I would listen.
Yeah, I think, and I was having the same issue because I was like, okay, alkaline all the way when this all kicked off, and I was getting bloated. And so I started asking those questions and came to the conclusion that what's happening is I'm diluting the acid in my stomach. And so again, my food is not being digested properly at the forefront of my digestive system. So when it moves into the rest of into my colon, it is not digested. So therefore the gut bugs, the bacteria in my body that's trying to digest and use that food and convert it into energy and all the things that my body does can't, because it hasn't been properly digested up to that point. And therefore the bloating happens. Bloating is a symptom of your gut bugs not being able to digest the food properly, right?
So that makes me wonder though, then, because Brussels sprouts bloat me, pumpkin seeds bloat me, carbonated water bloats me. Like, so if anything bloats me, does that mean I need to stay away from it? Because I feel like Brussels sprouts and broccoli are great for you, but I get bloated right away.
Yep. Well, one, I'm sorry you get bloated. That stinks. But
you're making it worse. It's happening.
Why do you get so bloated? No, so we do have to listen to our body, but sometimes we have to take it a step further. When we have a food that's good for us, but it's not good for you as an individual, It could just be one, your body genetically doesn't process that food well. Maybe it's missing some enzymes or it just doesn't do well for a variety of factors. But then there's the other factor, which is, well, why isn't your body digesting that food well? Like, what else is going on? There might be, right? There might be a little gut bug that you have that you just don't know about that shouldn't be there. And that's interfering with your capacity to digest. You might have a little what's called pancreatic insufficiency. Maybe your pancreas has been working really hard for a long time and it's not making adequate amounts of enzymes. So you're putting these foods that take a lot of digestive enzymes to break down, high fiber foods. And
so is the solution to take more digestive enzymes maybe?
Or probiotics or?
Yeah.
Could be, yeah. A definite solution is to support each part of your digestive tract temporarily. But again, we got to get causation here. We got to get behind the reason, right? I tell my patients all the time, I go, some people come in, they're like, you know, I live in Georgia, right? So people are from the South and they'll be like, yo, doc. And I'm like, yeah. They'd be like, you got something for my, well, I'm like, yeah, I mean, what are you doing? Doctor's got me on that damn medication and I hate taking it. And I'll be like, okay, well, I mean, I can give you some herbs that may have the same effect, but what am I really doing for that guy? We're just replacing a blood pressure for an herb, which is healthier for him, for sure, right? But am I really getting to the cause? No. So it's really about kind of getting to the cause. So when someone has symptoms like that, I think one of the messages I hope people take away from this conversation is to pay attention to their body, to listen, and then to look, you know, not be okay with some odd symptom. Like, what is that? What's my body trying to tell me? You know, where's that coming from?
And we got to be willing to do that type of work. I think we're all doing a lot of work. I'm not telling anyone out there that they're not working hard enough. It's just, what are you working hard on? And is it going to be the thing that allows you to have longevity and a beautiful, enjoyable life, right? We just need to transfer some of that hard work onto the stuff that really matters at the end, because it's the only thing that brings you to the end, your body.
That's right. Yeah. You got it.
So I have so many things to continue going on.
I know.
It's like,
it takes us so long to ask one question.
A lot of people don't think about their lymphatic system. So can you go into exactly what that is and how we can cleanse it?
Certainly. So the lymphatic system is a system in our body that has a couple main functions. One is detoxification. So it is responsible for removing from our cells and in the spaces around our cells, toxins, debris, poisons, things like that would accumulate, and getting them essentially to the liver, not directly, but indirectly to the liver, and then to also be an immunological presence. There's a lot of lymphocytes, white blood cells in our lymphatic fluid, and so it fights infection. So that's its main job. Detoxification, the other job is basically an immune type of action. And it's super important for the body. Like, it's not really talked about enough. It's when you look at just lymph fluid, you have 3 times more lymph fluid in your body than you have blood.
What?
3x lymph fluid. I do not lie, Jade. That's the truth. Wow. So you have a lot of this stuff because there's so much going on outside your bloodstream. There's so much going on like in between the cells where there's not really blood per se. There's fluids called the extracellular space, extracellular fluid. And the lymph is going through all that stuff and cleaning that stuff up. And when there's too much toxin or too much congestion that's built up in the lymph system, it interferes with the cell's ability to get nutrients and to even get oxygen. You know, it's like you have a cell, and your body needs to get oxygen to that cell. Well, if in between the space between the cell and the oxygen molecule, it's all filled up with all this gunk. It's like you can't get there. It's like having a big accident on the highway. You just can't get to where you need to go. You're just bumper to bumper. So the lymph system is really important to look at. As far as detoxification, one of the easiest ways to detoxify the lymphatic system is early morning lemon water combined with some mild intermittent fasting, like you're avoiding food for at least 12 hours. So you're giving the liver a break. So the liver
Does the lemon water need to be warm?
Yeah, it should be. Thank you. Yeah, it should be ideally warm lemon water.
And if it's hot, it supposedly kills the benefits of the lemon, right?
Yeah, you don't want to make it too hot because then it could destroy some of the enzymes and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
But ideally, warm lemon water first thing in the morning, and movement is what really helps the lymphatic system. So if you could do lemon water first thing in the morning and on a fast, get some movement in, you know, our heart pumps our blood. We have this big heart that pumps constantly moving blood through, but we don't have a pump for our lymphatic system. The way we move is when we move our body. It contracts your muscles, which squeezes your lymph. And then when your muscles relax, then the lymph relaxes, and then they squeeze again and it moves the lymph and then it relaxes. So we need that motion in our body. So things like rebounding on a trampoline, just getting out and going for a walk, you know, any type of full body exercise or full body movement, yoga, hot yoga, all those things are great at aiding in lymphatic detoxification. Those are some really good things.
I want to find a place that does specifically lymphatic drainage massage, but I'm having a hell of a time.
There's a lot in Austin, but there's also like the rollers that you can do on your neck and face.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. Which I put mine in the freezer. And then I do it. It's been in the freezer for months. I've never used it. But
really, really cold, right?
The point is that then it also wakes you up in the morning and like depuffs you on your face while you're doing it.
It's awesome.
But because it's in my freezer, I forget about it.
Yeah, right.
I noticed you speak to dry brushing, which I have a dry brush. I forget to use it again, like Jade's saying most of the time. Yeah. But I think it's because it's not something you can visually know is working, and it almost seems so woo-woo.
I also don't know that it's a confusing thing to know if you're doing it right and in the right motion. So
towards the heart.
So the easiest thing that you could do for dry brushing, because you're right, people try to make it really complex, and they're like, well, you know, the lymph drains this way in this area.
It's so confusing.
This way you got to go up, and this way you got to like spin around and do a little.
But if you're with the roller, if you're rolling up, you're also rolling down. So it's so confusing.
It's like, here's the easiest way to do all that type of stuff. We just want motion. We don't have to make it flex. It's just brush from your extremity up towards your heart, or some people brush up towards their liver, either one, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish. But just brush from the bottom up, from the top down, push everything towards the middle, because we want to get it into the abdomen area, because we want the liver to filter everything. The liver filters your liver.
For anyone listening, dry skin brushing is literally taking a fairly coarse dry brush, like it almost looks like a scrubbing brush or a back scrubber brush, something like that. And hopefully it's with natural fibers. You're brushing it on your skin, dry, not wet, you know, and it is stimulating your lymphatic system, correct? And this is supposed to be helping with things all the way down to cellulite.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how does it's the skin? It's just because the lymphatic system is in the fascia and all this under the skin?
Everywhere. Yeah. It's in the fascia. It's under the skin. It's in between the muscles, right? It's where enough of it is. So brushing, making that motion, it's like you're pushing this fluid that's kind of stuck in one area, and you're moving it. You know, you're moving it from one place to another. You're also improving circulation too. You're stimulating the nerves, and you're stimulating the blood vessels. And in the human body, almost everywhere in the human body, you have 3 vessels that run together, which is blood, lymph, and nerve. So you're stimulating all 3 of those too when you're dry brushing.
Beautiful. Okay.
Wow.
And that brings
I had no idea it was that important.
Oh, well, so I got a lady. So her name is Jean DePrano. She's the bomb. So she is, if you ever want to go to my YouTube channel, you can watch one of her videos.
Okay.
She's a lady. She is in her 70s and 80s. She was the fastest woman on the planet, and she would compete. She would compete with other people in her age bracket. It's like a 10 or 15 year age bracket. She'd compete all over the place on running. She would run hurdles in her 80s, right? She would run hurdles, and she would also do rowing. Those were her 2 competitions. And she was the fastest. And that lady for 15 years, and she says it on my video, she said every morning she dry brushes. As soon as she gets up.
Man, I have a habit, and I do this with books. I bought 5 dry brushes probably 2 years ago. I have not used any of them. I bought them in all different sizes. They sit in my bathroom, and I do the same thing with books. I've got hundreds of books that I've never read. So I really need to, this is going to be part of my new routine, is this dry brushing.
So talking about how much lymph fluid we're dealing with in our bodies is, I got to ask, how much water should we be drinking then? Does that play a part into this? And you talked about intracellular and extracellular fluid, or I don't know if I'm saying those things right, but that idea of each of our cells essentially having a certain amount of water in them, and then the lymph fluid being so prevalent in our body. What kind of water intake? We hear so many people talking about water needing to be like, Jade's got a gallon in front of her right now. But I've read books like Eat for Heat that talk specifically, like someone who runs cold like me should be eating or drinking way less water and eating more salt, or, and vice versa if you're the person who's always hot. So what do you think about all that?
Again, I think it is specific for a person. It can definitely vary. I think a good kind of like center, medium, middle of the road type of answer would be roughly half your body weight in ounces of water.
Okay, I drink my body weight.
Same. I drink more than my
But if I don't, my skin's dry. I feel better physique wise too when I am drinking my body weight.
Same. I think it was you and I that had to use the bathroom, right, Mercedes? Water. One of those gallons.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's because my doctor says that because I'm drinking this water, and we test my intracellular water. No, but it's, I mean, I want to make this point for both sides of the situation, because I was always drinking crazy amounts of water. I was always at the bathroom peeing. Like every time I'd fly, I'd have to get up several times. It's a pain in the butt.
I don't pass a bathroom without peeing.
Yeah.
I might as well in there.
I thought that's what you have to do. And then I started actually blood testing very regularly, and I saw like where my water levels in my cells were. And as I changed the type of water I was drinking to something with more minerals and something I guess I could absorb better and actually hold on to better, I didn't have to drink as much water to keep my levels where they need.
And I put Himalayan pink salt in my water as well.
Yep. That's what I said. Yeah. So Mercedes, you're spot on, right? So some people, especially if their body runs colder, but not necessarily, some other people too have issues with that. Some people, when they're putting too much water in their system, it can almost congest their system. And other people like me and like Jade, we need more. And I think it is important too to make sure that your water, that's why I like to run my water through a remineralizer. Mm-hmm. It's important, like I like what Jade's doing with the pink Himalayan salt. We'll recommend that to patients, or we sometimes recommend that they add some electrolytes to their water. There's another great thing you could do. Have you guys ever heard of a magnesium stick? Okay, so it's I forget the name of it. You guys can just, the listeners can Google online. Mm-hmm. So it's a magnesium stick, and it makes the water very similar to the water that the Inuits would drink. And their water would be super powerful, like antioxidant water. These people were like living forever. So adding this magnesium stick to their water, it created more of almost like an antioxidant water that was really kind of cool, and for certain groups of people, it could be really beneficial. For me, it's not optimal, but for other patients, it has been, and for certain groups of people, it can be. So it's something for them just to look at.
My grandma is really funny. She's super dramatic. And when Mercedes always laughs when I hold this water up to my face. Yeah. Because it's a gallon. It takes up my whole face. And I was drinking it at Thanksgiving, and I heard my grandma behind me, "Do you want to drown?"
It's aggressive.
She was telling me how if you drink too much water, you could literally drown yourself. Yeah.
And next time, just wear your kids' floaties when you
wobbling under.
Yeah, that's what drink safely is all about, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. So, and because you brought up magnesium is you take a reacted magnesium daily, and that's something that's been difficult for me, is to get my magnesium up naturally through diet and such. And I think that also helps me maintain a lot of that water in my colon, and because I had struggled with constipation for so long, that's obviously really important for me. So yeah, but I'm going to look into that magnesium stick that you're talking about there.
Check it out. Yeah, take a look.
All right. So apparently there's a wrong and a right way to eat nuts. And I found your video informative. So can you just cover this for our listeners? I think it's like a little magic trick that we should all know.
Yeah.
So I don't know which videos you watch, but I got a couple out there on nuts. And one of them is on soaking your nuts. And the other one is on what happens when your nuts are in the water. And the first one, with soaking your nuts, it's like when we look at nuts and we're looking at eating nuts and seeds, sometimes it's nuts and seeds contain different like anti-nutrients. They're things that kind of interfere with the absorption of the nutrients in the nut, like phytic acid, for example, is one of them. So when you soak the nut overnight or the seed overnight, it pulls out phytic acid and some of the other anti-nutrients. And then the next morning you rinse them, and they're now way more nutritious for you. Your body can absorb the nutrients in the nuts and seeds more effectively. And if you like a dry nut, afterwards you can dehydrate them. You can put them in 106, 108 degree dehydrator, and you can dehydrate them if you want to, season them with whatever you want to season them with, like some Himalayan salt or some cayenne, turmeric, whatever. You're good at that point, and you get actually more nutritious nut or seed. So that's how they work, right? Just in nature, like nuts are like, if you put a nut on a counter, nothing happens to it. You got to plant it, and the water has to be right in the ground, and the environment has to be right. When there's enough water, it'll sprout, right? So because it's not going to get rid of those it's just how it's made, right? Wow. So without getting too scientific on it. So when you soak them, you flush out the anti-nutrients. You make them more absorbable for your body. It makes it easier.
Do they still taste the same?
No, they taste a little different. They're like a little soggy. Yeah. They're an acquired taste. I love them now. Like, I don't have any problems.
I know it's important to keep a lot of people don't know this, but like keeping all nuts in the refrigerator, because they grow mold that you can't see. But I soak my cashews and then I blend them, and I turn that into a vegan cheese and a vegan sour cream, and it's delicious.
You guys are cool.
But you also showed a video of what happens if they float.
Oh yeah, if they float, they'll make you bloat. Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you,
cool.
yeah. So the nuts, when the fats in the nuts go rancid, there's a chemical reaction that happens that changes the buoyancy of the nut. Instead of it sinking, it actually floats to the surface of the water. So you can go ahead and you can, whatever nuts you're going to soak, if you're going to do that the night before, you just fill them up in a bowl and you fill the bowl up with like some good clean water. And if there's a couple that float on the top, you just pull them off and toss them.
Now, when it comes, tell me again, stop me if this is going too far into land we need to go into. But when it comes to arginine levels in nuts,
yes.
And when you're trying to not, especially with like herpetic outbreaks, viruses are prone to, I guess, react or come out of their dormancy whenever arginine levels get too high and lysine levels get too low. Am I saying? Okay.
Right.
And so in that situation with nuts being high arginine, does this have any effect on it by doing the soaking of the nuts and making sure they're not rancid? Because I've heard that that's a big part of how that interacts with viruses in your body.
Yeah. So the rancid part for sure, you want to make sure your nuts are not rancid. Soaking them is not necessarily going to get rid of the arginine. That's part of the protein matrix inside the nut, but you're spot on. When your arginine levels get too high and your lysine levels then, by just mathematical, just get too low, you do create an environment in your body where specifically the herpetic viruses, and cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr virus have more of a chance of reacting. So yeah.
Beautiful.
So, cool.
I was just going to say, we interviewed Dr. Jess all about these different viruses that we're all living with. And I don't know if you follow her, Dr. Jessica Petros on you've probably seen her stuff on
Dr.
Instagram.
Jess MD, I think is her.
Yeah, but that's really interesting to tie in there. So if anyone was
on Instagram, I think
you
follow her on Instagram. Yeah,
cool. She's great.
Yeah.
So
So we always have Magic Mob questions, and we have 3 for you, and then we'll move on to our speed rounds that we always end the show with. But Patty asks, how do we get to the root cause of stubborn fat or the inability to lose or gain weight?
Well, you have to test. I mean, you gotta, the only way I know to do that, because what you're asking is, what you're essentially asking is, what's the cause of my problem, right? And in truth, one of the things that, like, I'll say to my patients, look, it's not that I want to help you lose weight, because I don't think the target should really be your weight. It's, I want to get your body healthy so it can lose the weight, because that's why you're struggling with weight. Your body's just unhealthy, because healthy bodies can more easily lose weight. So the answer to that question is really, the only answer I have is to look and identify the cause or reason why. And that involves getting with the right practitioner or learning the information yourself, getting yourself tested, finding out where the out point is, and then correcting it.
And a lot of times I know for women and men, instead of saying stubborn weight, it's like stubborn belly fat.
Yeah.
And so that's usually, if you're not gaining fat all over and it's just in the belly fat, a lot of times it can be candida, it can be parasites, it can be so many other things that we talked about. So
many things. When you just look at the hormonal upset, we could just look at like 3 basic hormones, and we can go, well, cortisol is going to make you store fat in your midsection.
Yeah.
Estrogen is going to make you store fat in your hips, buttocks, thighs, so you make it more like a pear.
Well, I want that.
Okay, well, cool. Lots of flax.
Flax. Okay.
Right. If you have, because we mentioned also thyroid, right? The thyroid, we said, is connected to every single cell in your body through the mitochondria, and thyroid cases, they typically gain weight all over. Right. So you can almost look at where the person is depositing fat, and you can go, well, if it is a lot of belly fat, we can look at cortisol, and if there's cortisol problems, we know there's probably some other problems, like some type of pathogen, like you just said, candida or something like that, that's present. Yeah.
When it comes to that, I'm curious if you recommend maca powder and also bioidentical progesterone, because since I struggle with making progesterone, I was putting on a bioidentical organic progesterone cream. And I mean, you can tell the days I take it, I act like I'm on birth control. I act like the most moodiest, most on edge person. So it's not working for me, even though my body needs it. So it's odd that I had that effect.
I want to know. So that's a really good question. So when people need progesterone, what their body's telling them is they don't need progesterone. Their body's telling them you're probably making a little too much cortisol, right? So you're okay.
So I'm fixing it with the other things. Okay.
So here's the thing, Jade. So check this out. If your body's stealing progesterone to make cortisol, and then I go, well, let me throw a whole bunch of progesterone on here, my body's going to go, great. Now I can make a ton of cortisol. You want to go out of your mind.
Oh, it made me feel cuckoo, but Damn, that was an expensive bottle. But I bring up maca because I notice with maca, I don't know if men benefit from maca as much as women, but maca powder makes me gain weight in my hips and my butts and my thighs, which is strange to me. I'm not complaining. As I said, I want that, but I wondered why. What about maca powder does that?
I don't know that there's something specifically about maca powder, because I could probably give you 10 different reasons right now, and I don't know which one would be the correct one for you. I think in your case, there's something, I mean, just from hearing the little bit that we've talked tonight and how we've gotten to know each other a little, for you specifically, it does sound to me like there is something going on in your body, possibly gut related, that you've just not identified, right? Especially because there's, you eat bloating when there's broccoli and Brussels sprouts, and, like certain things when you drink them, like water, certain types of water, I think it was alkaline water, it will instantly kind of create that bloating for you. These are just kind of like little things that go off in my ear. They're little red flags. And I go, oh, in this woman's intestinal tract, there's something there. So I would guess that it probably has to do with something along those lines. And I'm not exactly sure where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to also point out, just because we did have a question about the body weight, we do promote on the show, like loving the body you're in, and, the mixed messages we get about the perfect body and things like that. And when we talk about body weight here, we're more talking about
how to become your most healthy self.
Yes.
Yeah,
right. And on the inside, and when it's something that there's a root cause. We're not, yeah.
Yeah. I look at, so maybe some people are going to hate me for this response, but I look at my body, I look at it as it's a tool. So it's a tool that I'm going to use to create an effect in life. It's a tool I'm going to use to be a great dad, or the best dad I can be, the best husband I could be, the best doctor that I could be. And I have to make sure my body's operating properly to be able to allow me to do those things, to be of service for others, right? So it's my viewpoint on my body is that, one, it's a tool, and two, it's an instrument of creating an effect. Meaning I want to create an effect on the people around me. And the effect that I want to create is, I'm a healthy doctor. If I was 200 pounds heavier sitting on the show with you, you guys would probably be like, well, maybe he knows stuff, but he's certainly not doing what he's
applying it.
So there's an effect that I want to create with that. So I think for people, whatever your body looks like, as long as, one, you're healthy, you feel good, and you're doing those things you should do to make your body healthy. Look, if you're healthy and you happen to be 15 pounds heavier than someone else, who cares?
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's like, what are you trying to do with your physical form? Unless you're a model, unless you're something like that, then that could be a little different, because there's a different type of effect you're trying to create.
Right.
Look, I think it's vital and paramount for us to first focus on ourselves as creating the healthiest self we can be, so that way we can be as much to others as we can possibly be.
Yeah, we like that.
And I think that when we're talking specifically about fat, or AKA, what are we calling it? Excess fuel or stored fuel?
Energy.
Yeah, potential energy.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Getting to know specifically what the different types of fat are, because we have different types of fat. I don't know all the names of them. Visceral. Well, I can't think of any of the names of them right now. But the different types of fat and the way that we store them around our organs for protection, or when it becomes so much of that type of fat that it's unhealthy and it's hurting us. And just knowing the way to, again, maybe it's just my overly analytical mind that wants to define and label and have specifics of how my body works. But that for me really helps me to then go, okay, well, this is why this is at an unhealthy place for me, and how, why I want to be able to repair it. And then that's motivation for me to get on track to being my healthiest self. So I don't know if that helps anyone.
I love that, Mercedes.
Just I don't know, I guess the millennials are a generation of labeling, and I'm all for it. So
it helps you, at least for me, when something has a label, it makes it more easily understood.
Yes.
Right? It's like, okay, great. What do I do about that?
Exactly.
Great. I can think with that.
That's how we feel.
Yeah. One step closer to figuring it out for yourself, instead of when it's ambiguous, you have fear around
I hate ambiguity.
Yeah. We don't have control issues at all on this show.
Give it to me straight.
All right. So Dan on Instagram asks, is it best to juice or to blend?
Oh, it really just depends on the individual. It just depends on the individual, what you're trying to do, what your end goal is. If you're really unhealthy and you do have something like cancer or a more kind of like terminal disease, you can't digest well, your gut's really a mess, but we want to infuse your bloodstream with the nutrients you would find in vegetables, then things like juicing are going to be better, because, you can't eat that much broccoli, especially if you're sick,
Right.
if you have a cancer or something like that. It makes things much more difficult. So for those guys, juicing is better. For the other guys that want to blend, that they feel like they need that, then blending is great, because blending, you're able to quickly get down a whole bunch of vegetables that you would need, and you're able to absorb a lot of the nutrients from them because you're breaking down the fiber. So I think generally, probably I would lean towards blending if I had a choice in blending. Yeah, I would lean towards blending, because you're getting the fiber in there that helps your gut bacteria. So
I was thinking with the slow masticating juicer, you're like actually getting all of the benefits because it's like chewing it for you almost.
Yeah. So here's the thing with the slow masticated juicer. So that's really good, because the benefit on that is when you spin something in a juicer, it spins so fast that it breaks apart the enzymes, and it heats up. So at the microscopic level, hot, and it actually will kill the enzymes. So when you juice some of the juicers that spin really fast, you're getting a less nutritious juice, because it's
killing off that stuff.
fast. You're killing the enzymes. But with a masticator like that, those are really good, because you're not doing that. You're just kind of crunching it, but you're still missing a lot of like the fiber for some people who really need that fiber. So
I see.
Again, there's benefits to each one.
Yeah.
It really depends. And if you're asking me, is it better to have a masticating juicer or a regular fast, the masticating? 100%, million times. Takes a little while. You'll be there for a minute. But
Yeah. It makes me wonder though too, with the idea of drink your food, chew your water, drinking a smoothie, it's just kind of like going straight in, right? You're not really mushing that stuff around. So is that something you recommend, is to kind of let it be in your mouth for a little bit first? Let your saliva imprint on it. That's a cool little tip. And then I also want to just add that I read up the other day on Manuka honey, which is obviously beautiful and I've used forever, but don't put it in your hot tea, because you're killing off all the bioactive guys in there.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Right.
Yeah. I was like,
I also, because we talked about so much about water, I was thinking about how like most of the water I drink, I do put the salt or the lemon or the ACV, and I don't drink that much just water. Is that okay?
Yeah.
She's all scared. I like how this is Jade's doctor appointment today. Amazing. That's why we got a podcast.
Yeah, you're good. You're good with the ACV.
Okay. All right. Someone else's question. Last question from the Magic Mob. Tom asks, what is your take on GMOs? Should they be avoided at all costs?
All costs.
Okay. There's a lot of, it's weird that there's so much debate on this.
But let's give us the basics on GMO, because this is something that I feel like most of the population has no idea. Like you start saying letters like GMO, you're like, I don't know.
They don't even think about it when they're at the store. A lot of people.
Yeah, they don't, right? The two categories are often organic versus non-organic.
Conventional.
So GMO, stands for genetically modified organism. And what they're doing is there's a substance, right, that's basically found in Roundup, these herbicide, pesticide type of concoctions, called glyphosate. And glyphosate, before 1994, was able to be sprayed on crops, but it wasn't that often, right? It was sprayed maybe about once a year or something, and it would help to prevent the crops from being destroyed by environmental factors. So which was good for the guys, and it was kind of toxic, but not super toxic. When they genetically modified them, what they did is they literally changed the gene structure, the genome of the plants. So the plants were able to tolerate more glyphosate. So before they could only spray them like once a year.
Right.
They'd spray them once a year, and then that's all they could do. Now they could spray these things like crazy and just load them up with glyphosate. It won't kill the plants, and it will, because it's there, it'll prevent the plant from dying from any environmental factors like pesticides, weeds, that type of stuff. So it keeps the plant more healthy, so they get bigger yields, they get more crops. But what we get is a load more of this glyphosate in our food source. It's something I test for in my clinic. There's a urine study into this. Yeah, and it's through Great Plains Diagnostic.
Yeah, Great Plains. That's what Dr. Jess uses.
Yeah, they're awesome. We use this a handful of different labs around the country, but Great Plains is good. So in any event, oh wait, Dr. Jess.
You know now.
I totally got him. I got him now. Yeah, I just got him. Okay, so he's big. He's a big advocate of things against GMO, right? And against glyphosate.
No, this is a woman, Dr. Jessica Petros. She's all about kill, bind, sweat. That is her protocol.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
Well, you'll figure it out. I'm sure we'll go back.
So, but this glyphosate then has been added massively to the crops, and then people eat this stuff. And what we see, just looking at things from a broad viewpoint, right? Step back outside the planet and just let's put the planet out here and let's look and see what's happening. And we see in 1994 was when GMOs started to be incorporated in our foods as a food source. And then we see a sharp increase after that. Prior to 1994, we see disease increasing, but it's at this pace, right? It's going up. It's not good. It's going up, but we see like type 2 diabetes and things like that increasing. But then we add genetically modified foods in 1994, and all of a sudden things go straight up through the roof.
Wow.
And that's from the glyphosate. So for some reason, I thought GMO was like fake food. Like we're making corn that's not actually corn.
Kinda. They are kind of doing that.
Okay.
But the reason they're making it genetically modified is to make it more resistant to the glyphosate, more resistant to the glyphosate, so they could spray more glyphosate, which means more glyphosate. It's like, look, if I could spray more weed killer on my plants without killing them, that means there's less weeds, so I'm going to have more plants grow, right? Less pesticides. Glyphosate's a pesticide. If we spray more pesticide on the plants without killing them, that means I have more plants because less plants will be killed by the pests, by the bugs. So glyphosate, we know, destroys the microbiome. It just kills the human microbiome. It's so horrible for our gut. And we think that that's why there's this connection between the adding of the GMOs and then the increase or spike in really diseases, in our country. So horrible.
Yeah.
Really
And
horrible.
you say in our country, because not all countries even allow this.
That's right. Yeah. Some are like, no way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sure everyone listening has probably heard the word Monsanto by now. And to speak to your point, the idea of, just to be clear, I want to repeat things so that people understand this concept of GMO being this genetically modified organism, modifying the seed specifically, creating the fake plant that Jade's speaking to. It's not fake as far as our bodies are consuming it. We think it's corn or we think it's soy or whatever it is, but the glyphosate is giving us some negative side effects that we're seeing in disease, right? We're thinking that we're seeing that as a problem that's already become a big problem. It's going to become a bigger problem down the line. But the reason, so everyone's asking themselves, well, why are we doing that? Because farmers get a higher crop yield when they put more pesticides on their crops because the bugs don't eat it. So it looks like pretty corn or fruit or whatever it is in the grocery store. And a large part of that is the way that we choose our produce in the grocery store is we look for the prettiest one. And that's something we're kind of taught. Because it's a little uglier doesn't mean it's tastes
prettier
worse.
and the bigger. So we get the bigger fruit, which is usually the GMO. The prettier fruit that doesn't turn brown as quickly is usually the GMO.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cultural stories around how we even choose our produce and shop in the grocery store that we have to decide to untangle in order to help the situation move in the right direction. And then if anyone listening is interested, researching why Monsanto is a big issue now that they're, I think, a conglomerate with like Bayer aspirin or whatever, or Bayer generally. And to speak to Jade's point about the other countries not using Monsanto seed, a lot of them don't. Some of them are forced to, like Haiti has had a big problem with Monsanto seed and calls it Satan seed. They have like seed burning ceremonies where they burn the seed because they understand how bad this is going to be for their community. But places like Hawaii, where every farm on Hawaii now, I think, is Monsanto seed, not on purpose, but because the wind is obviously high there all the time, and the seed gets carried sometimes from one farm to the next, which might be next door neighbors. And Monsanto, because they're this giant conglomerate with tons of money, goes on and tests these different farmers' crop and says, hey, that's our seed, that's our GMO product, and we're going to sue you for using our seed without us saying, or basically without buying it from us. And the farmer's like, I don't want your seed. I don't want to be growing this shit. I'm trying to grow something organic. And because this lawsuit happens for so many of these farmers, they are forced to then use Monsanto seed after the lawsuit. So that is why it's become like this really serious epidemic in the farming community, as well as in all of our, lives where we're ingesting the shit.
And with Monsanto being such a corrupt company, like the way we help is by not giving them our money, by not buying GMO
products.
But it was also my understanding that like there's no more, unless it's organic, there's no more real corn or real pea.
I think in corn or the
soy. Yeah, that like that's how bad it's gotten. That if it's not organic, it's actually not even real anymore.
I think there's a lot of truth to that statement, Jade. You know, to speak to what Mercedes just said, that's one of the problems is when we look at how nature works anyway, you know, and pollination and things work, it's like air brings things from one place to another, and animals and birds and bees, they bring things from different places to other places, and we get the cross pollination and things like that. So it's like you do start to have these issues where the food sources are just, you know, are there any clean seeds anymore?
Yeah.
And even
is it too late?
Like what's happening at the level of the organic food? Have they been affected? If some of the seed, if some of the food, if some of the crop, some of the soil been infected and almost like, you know, depurified by this garbage, you know? So it's definitely something I think as a population, we really need to focus on. I think it's very important.
Yeah. And it's tough because what are we going to do? Grow our own food at this point? We've gone so far into being convenienced, you know, by so many ways that our culture allows us to just have these conveniences, step into a market and pick your fruit. And we don't do the things that take up all that energy, like growing our own food, but it might be a big way that you could help to fight this problem if you're interested.
Yeah, it almost makes me feel like if we don't, then in 10 years, we won't have a choice. It'll just be
that
GMO.
Seed. That's it. There are some seed banks around the world that are like vaults because, you know, that's the last of that seed as far as Monsanto's concerned. They don't even want that to exist. So it's just a scary little place where
it's all about money.
Capitalism gets a little too heavy for us, but
I you know, I just wish, like, I'm totally cool with capitalism provided it has a great purpose behind it. You know, I think as long as we're helping, and whatever you're doing that's capitalistic in nature is something that's going to bring value to people's lives and help everyone's lives, man, be as capital as you want to be. I don't care.
Agreed.
But when you're using capitalism as a tool to generate money by making everyone you're connected to sick, that's disgusting.
Yes.
It's a horrible thing.
Yeah. I don't like it.
We're in this together, guys. We'll figure it out.
We are, man. We are. Let's get our floaties in a big 64 ounce.
Of the good water. Yeah. All right. There's a few short questions I'd like to ask everyone who comes on the show.
Sure.
If you could hug your younger self right now, what would you say?
Say that question again.
If you could hug your younger self right now, what would you say?
If I could hug my younger self right now, what would I say? I would say, man, that's a really good question. Younger self, like how old?
Any age that needed the hug.
Yeah, popped up.
Shit, man, that's a lot of ages. I would say to myself, to my younger self, the hug I would give would be, I would say, I don't know what I would say. That's a really good, I've never even thought about that. What would I say to my younger self? You know what I would say? I would say, you can do this. I would say, you can do this, even though it looks so dark. I promise there's a purpose for everything that you're going through right now. There's a purpose for it. And just don't quit, you know, because there was definitely times in my life, like when my mom and dad were really sick. You guys getting emotional here. Yeah. When my mom and dad were really sick, and there was times, you know, I remember I was in 6th grade, and I just found out the day before that my mom had cancer, and I was sitting in class, and I went to Catholic school, and I was Italian, so I went to this Catholic school, and there was this nun, Sister Mary Cosmas, that taught the class. She was an interesting woman, and I was acting up really bad, you know, I was like just being disruptive and stuff. She pulls me out of the class. She grabbed me by the ear, yanks me out of the class. She's like, DeBease, what's your problem? What's wrong with you? And I was like, what? Nothing. And she's like, why are you acting this way? And it just hit me, and I looked at her, and I was like, I think my mom's going to die. And I had such a close relationship with my mom and dad. And it just, you know, there was moments seeing my parents go through all the stuff they went through was really rough. I became their caregiver at different parts of my life, which was really strange for a young kid, you know, having to do that, like a 12-year-old kid or whatever. And there was times when I just wanted to like, just give up, you know, I was like, and I think I didn't understand why. And coming through the other end, there's lessons I've learned from that. And there's passions that I've created. And not that I'm glad my parents went through anything like that, because I'm not, but the thing that I would say to myself in that hug would just be like, you know, don't quit, don't give up. There's a purpose for this. There's a reason for this. You're going to learn from this. That's what I would say.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you
really gets you in the feels.
Here, guys.
If you could have the whole world read one book, which would it be?
One book for the whole world? J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. No. Although I do love that book. No, it would probably be something helpful, like maybe Eat to Live by Joel Furman.
Okay.
That's a really good book. I think it would be really good for if we could all adopt the mindset of
Eat to live.
food, not just for the neurotransmitter relief we get from it, right? Like that cannoli was so good. I feel
Yeah.
amazing. I feel like hell afterwards. But if they could understand the concept of really eating to live and consuming different foods because it has a positive effect on our body's ability to do what we need to do so we could carry out our purposes and missions in life. I think that would be a good book.
I thought you were going to say Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek
Oh.
because I heard you say eat. I just ordered that. So
Oh, is that one of your books?
I just ordered it. Yeah.
Cool.
That is, yeah, I think that's really great advice that you're speaking to in that book. I haven't read it specifically. I actually do have it in my audiobook library. But I noticed, of course, that's one of the things we all go to when we think of how we're mistreating our bodies with food is the psychological end of it and how to get through that piece. And then, of course, like figuring out what now, once we do that, what we do want to be putting in our bodies.
Yeah.
I notice in myself, I have this like story I have been telling myself that when I'm around my husband, I overeat. And the story I'm telling myself that happens there is that him being around, like us being around, which we don't get a lot of time together, we both travel for work, is usually while we're eating together. And so if I prolong it by eating for a longer time, then it's more time spent with him. So that's an interesting little story I have to unwind for myself. But
I've also read before you overeat because something's eating at you.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're overeating in a moment, it's because also, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
so I'll say this, Jade, I will completely validate that statement. When something's eating at you, we know neurochemically there's something going on that's like negative, right? There's levels going up. There's certain negative neurochemicals going on. When you eat food has been designed to create a positive neurochemical experience because you want it to be good, just like you want sex to be good because that helps you live and it helps procreate. Yeah, so it's like, so you want food to be good. So when when something's eating at you, you want to eat, and sometimes you
makes sense. Yeah.
to chemically balance the other side of all the junk that's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes the reason why there's like food addictions and things like that.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. If you could whisper one phrase to everyone on the planet, what would you say?
One phrase to everyone. You guys asked some cool questions. One phrase to everyone. I would say, so because I do what I do, I would say, people probably won't like me for this phrase, but it's true for me. So I would say health is your duty. That's what I would say. I would say it's your duty to be healthy because there's so many people that love you and you're so valid. And there's people that need you. You know, there's kids that need you. There's a husband or a wife that needs you. There's a work or an environment that needs you. You're so needed that it is your responsibility. It is your duty to create health in your body so you can carry out the things that you need to have fulfillment personally and also to help all the other people that you need to help. So I would say, health is your duty. That would be my statement.
I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was curious if you know your animal ally or spirit animal.
I have no idea. What do you think?
I'm able to see animal allies on people, and what I saw for you was alligator, which sounds really odd. I would have always thought I was an elephant because I feel so drawn to them. And I became aware that it was fox, which I never even think about foxes, but it's because that animal has messages specifically for me in this time. But anyhow, I Googled alligator meaning, spiritual meaning, and it says the alligator or crocodile meaning urges you to conserve life and do everything in your power to protect and save it. It also reminds you to take care of your spirit because when the spirit is unhealthy, the body also suffers. Your spirit is what gives your body life and physical strength.
That, I'm not even kidding when I say could not be more spot on for me.
Yeah. And I didn't know that's what alligator meant when I saw, obviously, when you were being an alligator in front of me. I just thought, well, let me look up what it means because it is random.
That's
I've never
nuts.
seen
You need to
one
have
before.
a whole other show, Jade. That's so cool. That totally indicates to me because like I'm all about creating a healthy body, but I'm about it because like my viewpoint, this is just my viewpoint, other people's
hand in hand,
right? Is we're spiritual beings and we're having this physical experience. So we have this body that we're much like I'm in and out of my car. It doesn't mean I'm my car, and I don't think that I'm a body. So I think
that's a good way to put that.
Yeah. So I don't thank you. So I don't think that I have a body. And I think one of the most important things for me is just spirituality, because I think my thoughts, my decisions, how I am as a spiritual being is so pervasive and affects everything. It affects the outcome, I think.
And I also think how you're treating your body and how your body appears resembles a bit of what's going on inside as well. Not just not just the health side of it, but the spiritual side, I mean. But yeah, when I see animals, I hardly ever know what they mean. I'm just like, oh, well, that guy is a bat. And I don't know I don't know anything about it, but I just thought like, well, alligator is so unique to see on someone. Let me just see what it means really quick. And then it ended up lining up really well. So
you're cool, man. That's that's an amazing ability, Jade.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
At first it was like, I felt like I was going crazy, but once I was able to find a way for it to benefit people, then I was like, okay, let me sharpen this. But before we let you go, where can people find you online?
Oh, sure. So my website is it's alternacareinc.com. So it's ALTERNACAREINC.com. So
we'll link that in the notes.
Sure. Cool. Google Alternacare and Dr. Rob and I should pop up.
Yeah. Awesome.
This has been so amazing. You've spent like 3 hours with us.
3 hours.
I think
it's obviously 2 episodes.
Yeah. This is maybe our longest interview. So I am so grateful for you sticking with us because we could sit here and talk all day. I would love to talk to you all day, but you have a life to live.
I feel like I spent the day at people's clinic.
Yeah. But I do want to really thank you for sharing your vulnerability with us through your story and being such a wealth of information, which I know has probably taken you so many years of hard, dedicated research and work to get to where you are with that. And it is very impressive and extremely healing and helpful to, I'm sure, anyone who allows themselves to listen and absorb this, and especially for I know myself and I'm sure Jade. So I just want to say thank you. I wish you all the success. We wish you all the success, and we will do what we can from our side at this show to help you to embody all of that.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a light.
Thank you very much.
All right. So let's see what I got for magic. I have it pulled up here. Do I? Yes, I do. All right. For my magic trick today, I've got something actually pulled straight from Dr. Rob's page, his Instagram. This is basically about, this is a personal one for me because I use a hair blow dryer, obviously to dry my hair like many people, but I also tend to use it whenever the room is like freezing cold. If I go to like a hotel room and I first get in there, something is freezing or I'm freezing to the bone, I will turn on the blow dryer and like stand in front of it until I'm warm. You know what I mean?
My kids like me to blow them with it in the face.
Yeah. Like, put it under my shirt or just whatever, sit in front of it and warm up. It's kind of like a pet peeve that my husband has with me too, because he's like, get out of the bathroom with the blow dryer. But he's always keeping the house freezing. Okay. So anyway, the thing is that Dr. Rob speaks on this post to the EMF waves, the electromagnetic.
Which I had no idea about.
Yeah, so is an electromagnetic field. I'm sure a lot of us have heard about this when it comes to like cell phone use and that type of thing. You don't want to keep it close to your head or on your body parts, like you're in your bra or something like that, because that can be bad. And a lot of people are very sensitive to electromagnetic radiation. So when it comes to blow dryers, doesn't mean you have to stop blow drying your hair and dry it by campfire, he says, but this is about, raising the awareness of electromagnetic radiation, especially for those who are sensitive to it, which is probably all of us to some degree or another. And he says that electromagnetic fields occur when electricity is running from one point to another. And some of these electromagnetic are thought to be dangerous to the human body and may produce cancer, according to the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer. However, there is other information that is contrary, showing electromagnetic fields may be safe for the human body. So, take it all with a grain of salt. Obviously, we want to be rather safe than sorry. And it is known that blow dryers do create a fairly significant EMF, so electromagnetic field. But the good news is the farther away you hold the blow dryer from your head, the weaker the electromagnetic field becomes. So if you want to do that, then hold the blow dryer about 3 feet away, which is about arm's length, to reduce the EMF waves pretty significantly, and it'll probably not cause any problem for you. So that's his recommendation there. He also does recommend a few different blow dryers, which if you want to go on his page and take a look at those on his post, it'll be, I'm sure, beneficial to anyone willing to do that.
Yeah, I had no idea, and I'm very careful with EMF, so I'm definitely going to do that. I'm not going to blow my kids in the face with it anymore.
What's your magic?
Mine's also pulled from his page, and this is something I had no idea about. So apparently, baby carrots are soaked in bleach for 5 minutes. I had no idea. So
I have heard this. Yeah.
So I did hear that like decaf coffee is like run through engine oil to like remove the
What?
caffeine. I've heard crazy stuff like that, but I never heard about
What?
carrots and
That's
bleach.
crazy.
So first off, he says baby carrots are cut from larger carrots and then they are polished. So essentially they are missing their outside skin, and which is super beneficial. But this practice was first invented in 86 to prevent carrot waste by a man named Mike Eurosek, who was a farmer in California. But unfortunately, these baby carrots are soaked in chlorine bleach water for up to a maximum of 5 minutes. And this practice is approved by the FDA with the idea of it helping to reduce foodborne illness. In fact, various fruits and vegetables may be sprayed in a chlorine bath. However, the baby carrots have a unique problem in his opinion. If you look at an adult carrot, you'll see it has a skin. Many fruits and vegetables, such as apples, also have a skin. Well, the skin of the apple protects the inside pulp from the harsh outside environment. The skin acts as the barrier, right? So if you were to spray some chlorine bleach water on the skin of an apple, it'll have a harder time soaking into the pulp. However, if you completely peeled the skin and then sprayed it with a chlorine bleach, the chlorine will soak into that pulp. So this is why this is such a big deal about the baby carrots, is it's not only just being soaked in bleach, it's also removing the outside skin. So it's so much more susceptible to absorbing the contaminants from the bleach. So
don't do it.
Yeah, if you want some baby carrots, just make them yourself.
Yeah, like cut up a big one and make them.
I know it's so convenient for veggie trays and for snacks for kids, but it's been soaked in bleach. So
yeah, and Dr. Rob, he speaks to how good carrots are for us. Adult with skin, carrots, clean them obviously in that, but it's just slice them up a few times and you got yourself some carrot sticks. So.
But also like any skin, like the red skin on apples is so good for our guts. But like he says, so many fruits and vegetables are sprayed with chlorine. So that's another reason to buy organic, because then you're getting that red skin that's pure from the red apple.
Pesticide all over it. Yeah.
Right. And it's so beneficial for the buddies in our belly is what I like to call them.
The buddies in our belly. I know. And I always say gut bugs, and I feel like that has a negative connotation. I think
it sounds like parasites.
Yeah. I mean, when I say gut bugs, and if you heard me say it earlier in the show, I mean our buddies in our belly. I mean our microbiome, bacteria, friends, and sometimes our foe as well, if they get over-colonized in the wrong direction. But anyway, you guys, if you have listened to this entire episode all the way through, I know, first of all, you have absorbed so much incredible information here. Wow. This is definitely one of my favorite episodes, like by far and away.
I knew it would be.
Yeah, I knew you knew because there's so much science in it and there's so much hormone talk. That's just right my jam. And I just want to say that, listeners, thank you for doing the work of listening to a podcast like this that speaks to so much of the, and like Dr. Rob was saying, it's a little nerdy, but it's for your own benefit and the benefit of those around you. And it's so beautiful that you guys who do come on here and listen to the show and absorb this stuff are doing that work. And I'm so glad to be sharing the planet with you guys.
Yeah.
To say about that.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. And thank you so much for tuning in and taking this journey with us. If this episode held some magic for you, like it did for us, please share it with your friends and family. I am sure that they would benefit from at least one of the tidbits that we discussed here. So this, would benefit your loved one's health. So it would also mean the world to us because we want to get this episode out there and we want it to benefit people as well. Also, don't forget to join us on our Instagram page at The Magic Hour and let us know what your favorite episodes have been so far. We appreciate all of your feedback and we really want to know what's lighting you up.
Go listen to some of our past podcast episodes in our library now. We'll meet you there. Until then,
be a light.